Alright, now it's time to talk about something that I've been thinking about for a long time. Especially lately. What does it mean to be a good person?
You can start. I actually feel strongly about this topic as well.
I'm wrestling with the problem because unfortunately deep down, I don't consider myself a good person, given all the past actions and the things that I've done that I regret, and all the bad actions that I have taken, and I don't feel like I'm a good person. I don't believe that I'm a good person. There are philosophers that say logic is, you use the definition of good by logic, whereas there are other philosophers who say that your emotions, how you feel, determines what is good or what is not, and I'm just confused by the whole thing. I don't necessarily agree with either of them. I think maybe it's a hybrid because there's matters of taste where you may have happy reactions or disgusted reactions, but the thing that is different about how regular taste, like disgust of taste, and what is morally reprehensible is emotional. There's an emotional, there's a very visceral reaction, and then there's a, at least an attempt to rationalize that visceral reaction. So, I'm not sure, or how one defines good and how one determines if they are a good person or not. I don't know. Okay?
I'll tell my viewers that I'm too stupid to keep up with everything you just said. I want to say a statement from a simple mind. Oh, when you say logic, right? The good.
Yes.
I feel like using logic would have to do more so with serving the people or serving others. Because if you use your logic is something that you might want, if it is good to you, but it might hurt 4 or 5 other people, or even one other person.
Yeah.
Actually, more than one, because 2 to 1. Something of a larger number, a larger scale. Logically, you would probably want to serve the betterment of the larger quantity.
Yes.
Whereas emotions, people can't feel your emotions for you. So I feel like from the emotional standpoint, it is actually all about serving yourself and what's good for you, and it's more self-centered, respectively, because you're going to be the one experiencing the effects of a certain experience.
Yes.
So that's what my dumbass has to say about that. And it's probably not even on the mark, but yeah.
Well, 2 things I have to say to that. I mean, logic tending towards serving the betterment of more people as a whole. Well, I guess ethics. I guess defining good from a logic standpoint, that would be true, because it is considering the whole. It is considering everything as a whole. Well,
Connected.
Yeah. I mean, the way, at least in my mind, the difference between ethics and politics, where you're serving a society and whatnot, is ethics. Ethics statements are like, I as a person should, whereas politics involves statements of collective whole, as in we should, and then the 2 are interconnected, because as the we then becomes the I, and then but it doesn't necessarily go the other way around. It's like not as like it political statements can become ethical statements, but ethical statements are not necessarily political statements, if you get what I mean.
You're not sure if you're a good person based off the past, right?
My past actions.
Forgive my simple statements, but I feel like, hey, if all life is learning and you became a better person from all that, right? I mean, I'm sure you can associate the word, maybe, better and good. You can put those two together if they're not closely related.
Yeah.
So if you were bettering yourself from past experiences, I don't see how that's not heading towards the direction of good. So for you to say that you feel like a bad person because of,
Yes.
You see where I'm getting, right?
Uh-huh.
What do you say to that?
I would say that is a trend that is the tendency I'm going towards. I'm becoming a better person, but I don't know if I have the confidence or dare say arrogance to say that I am a good person, because I do make mistakes. I do hurt people, and as long as I'm living for an extended amount of time, I will continue to disappoint people, and I will continue to hurt people, and
I thought that was a universal truth. That we are all imperfect.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not saying for extreme cases like, all of a sudden you can forgive this happening to others, but I thought, we could have some leeway to forgive ourselves for the fact that we are simply imperfect. Or even on top of that fact, the fact that life is challenging and life is suffering at certain points. So if this is like some sort of universal truth for everybody, why would you choose to pin yourself down when it's not just you? It's something it's natural in a sense. It cannot be escaped.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think maybe the difference is in definition. It's just maybe you're thinking overall a good person, but that maybe I'm associating more good with perfect, and maybe I'm definitely not a perfect person. Nobody is a perfect person, but just I don't think I am a good person, because I guess I am not even sure what good is. There's obviously standards of good, like the Ten Commandments, or the Golden Rule is just like treat others as you would like to be treated and whatnot. But I'm not sure. What the good is, or what is considered good actions.
I definitely associate physical, either reactions or the physical effect that something has on me.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, if I had to start to define the difference between good and bad, I know that there's a physical response attached to that. I mean, no offense. As I said earlier, man, if I were to physically harm you, you wouldn't like the feeling, man. Or even more so if I were to experience heartbreak, loss, grief, or guilt. I call that bad because my physical response is, it's one that makes me either feel sick or uncomfortable. And I don't like it. But then furthermore, this whole good thing, when I make jokes and laugh, it feels good. It's a happy feeling. And I associate it with good because it's something that I enjoy. And so again, on the surface level, I feel like I can put them into those categories as comfortable or uncomfortable. But I know that you're definitely seeing it on a deeper level. Yeah. Maybe we could start from there and try to take it.
For example, with the heartbreak, that feels bad, but that maybe the reasons behind it were good, in that you may feel a certain way, but they didn't feel the same way, and they did not want to lead you on anymore, and that's what I'm getting at. Is just like your bad does not translate to who the other person's bad. Even though it feels bad, it's in the grand scale of things not necessarily bad.
That's where things get complicated.
Yes.
Not so much blurred, but I agree. So in the moment, to the individual that feels the pain, correct, I feel that it's valid, it's real, but it's not until you get into the grand scheme of things and enough time passes to where, or when that individual spends the time to analyze and see the good in it.
Yes.
I guess concerning the present moment, yeah, things get a little funny in the grander scheme of it all.
Yes.
If that's the case, well, the lines get blurred for me because, yes, given enough time, you can either translate something into, well, it feels bad, but you can turn it into a good.
Yes.
Just the fact that it's good and bad are, I don't think flux is the right word, but they're constantly going in and out and either countering each other or, if neither is everlasting because they keep cycling?
Yeah.
I'm not sure so much anymore about the importance of those individual moments of good. Shoot, this is hard for me to say. So, concerning you saying you're a bad person, does it really, I guess it shouldn't, not that it shouldn't matter, but it shouldn't last that long, that feeling, because it's always a moment of good and a moment of bad, because it's always change. You're always changing, so it's not right to keep this moment and keep this feeling when in reality they are not really. That kind of stuff isn't it wasn't meant to.
Yeah.
It's just a continual movement forward in life.
Yes.
What do you have to say to that?
I guess there is a point to that things aren't always good and bad forever. That things can be bad at first, but then be good, and I guess that does help me a little. It just, the problem I still have is, how does one define the good, especially in all of that confusion where, bad becomes good becomes bad, and how is anybody supposed to make sense of it all?
I'm pretty sure that an individual has a right to make sense of it all to themselves.
Yes.
And again, in that moment, it's real, and it's...
Yeah.
And it gets blurred the moment that you have to interact with other people and present it to other people and all that stuff. Again, it gets blurred when others are involved, simply put, man. You can hold on to your truths by yourself and so on, but the moment that you have to express all that and it gets challenged by others or questioned by others, or even for the ones that agree with it, I think that's when things start getting a little... I guess
the problem that I have is that maybe I'm defining good and evil as like universal fixed things and they aren't necessarily that way, and that what was once good can be bad, and then what was once bad can be good. But at the same time, this is where I hate to get too like philosophically technical, but there's also a point where relativism fails. That relativism being that people will believe different things, and people will believe different things. That much is true, but that people have a right to believe different things as to what is good and what is bad at any given point in time. Unfortunately, when you when you start putting people together, and then there's that conflict of one person thinking that is bad and another person thinking that's good, but you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways, like the same thing being bad and good, like you know, being in a same-sex relationship, or like the death penalty, or stuff like that.
I've seen people react to this issue, and usually what they do is not so much retreat, but what they'll do is they'll go back into their own mind and their own space where you know, it's not as complicated. So in simple terms, what prevents you from simply saying, well, not so much what is right, but what is good and bad to me, and just lean on that? What would prevent you from just defining that in your own terms and just sticking by that? Because if all the effects, again, the physical effects, even the mental effects, or just the overall effect is going to land on you anyway, I feel like you have a responsibility to, you know, steer yourself clear of either pain and suffering. So with that said, it is up to you, this whole self-discovery thing, to discover, like, well, what is not, what you like, what you don't like, what's good, what's bad, and, you know, what hurts and what will make me happy.
Yeah.
And if you could, you know, sort all that out, I guess, wouldn't that just be enough? Because I think that's a lot of, it's common that when people fall into that issue, like you said earlier, I'm actually running in circles, but you get what I mean? Just mold your own truth and stick to it.
Mold my own truth and stick to it, but I am of the belief that it has to be tested by experience. That has to be tested by experience and shifted based on whether, you know, by experience it holds up or it fails, or going into another philosopher's belief.
Go ahead.
Just this that you get a concept in your head, and then you have to test it, and then, you know, whether it withstands reality or not, then you either keep it or alter it, and, you know, turn it into something, you know, turn it based on the test of experience into something, you know, that the best way I could word it, is still a complicated word, is transcending it, like transcending, you know, the results of that experience, and then the results of applying that concept to experience. And
I guess in terms of good or bad, right? Let's just hypothetically say, like, I believe killing's wrong, you know?
Yes.
Or cannibalism.
Yes.
It's bad.
Yes.
I hope I'm not missing the point, man. So that I have my own truth right now, right?
Yes.
Within myself, by myself. If you were to put me in the presence of a tribe where cannibalism is, you know, it's not only accepted, but ritual, like, it's, you know what I mean? I think it's okay. And this is what I'm gathering, like, when they say test, so if you put me in that group of, let's say, 5 people, and you're talking about testing it, like, I would be dead wrong to 5 other people, but that wouldn't shake. You get what I mean? I feel like, it's because everyone has a right to say what is good or bad to them, and that it's all different anyway. It's not so much pointless, but if you were to start expressing your version of good or bad, I'm not sure it matters as much, because everyone's entitled anyway to their own interpretation. So when you say experiment, or to see, you know, test it, if everyone has their own, entitled to their own version, would it really matter if 10 people said you were wrong about when in your heart and physically and mentally something feels right to you? I guess it's hard to agree on some sort of universal truth that everyone's going to agree with, because it's just concerning good or bad. It's just, again, everyone, not their conditioning, the way they were raised, all those little aspects, you know, what they were taught, and they're all entitled to.
Yeah.
And because you can't necessarily say it's right or wrong, it's kind of hard to, you know.
Well, as I'm talking
and it's not dodging the issue
No.
itself. It's just
I guess that's what I'm starting to gather with this conversation, that ethics is, that a person's ethics is very dependent upon their own experiences and their own environment and their own upbringing, and depending on all of that, it's like everybody's is going to be very different, and based on them applying their ethics to experience, and what is being crammed into their heads. And
I'm gonna push my luck. So if I'm not sure we agree, but if that's the case, how could you call yourself a bad person when you don't, with each other individual case you deal with, it may swing either way. And then another question I wanted to ask you is, if you say you feel like a bad person, would you change your mind if literally 100 people said that's not the case? Then would you believe it?
I wish I could say yes.
It's either you're gonna listen to yourself, the way you feel, or like a larger quantity of others.
I wish I could say yes. Just this, I would say at the most I am in the pursuit of becoming a good person, but so many times I have fallen short. Just this. Maybe I'm confusing good with perfect, but yeah, it's...
Maybe.
Yeah.
I usually chalk it up to learning.
Yeah.
Not so much good or bad, but it's all learning. It's all life is learning. And I'm really sorry to bring it to such simple statements, man, but yeah, the only thing I've learned so far is that it's hard to define. Right. Well, we were talking about being a good person, good or bad, but because everyone has their own interpretation, which they're entitled to, which makes them right, and this whole right or wrong thing, it's so blurred that it's hard for me to pin it anywhere that it'll stick anyways.
Yes.
So, again, I've said this earlier, and I guess to say that is I don't feel like you should feel justified in pinning yourself in this one thing for too long, because as we already mentioned, it's all interpretation and it's all always ever changing, and so on and so forth. So to go beyond right or wrong, good or evil, and call it a learning experience, or even to call it, which now I'm stealing something that I read literally just yesterday. It's all so much of a, man, I should probably give credit to this guy. This gentleman was saying the process is where the perfection lied. And I'm too dumb to actually verbalize or recycle what he said exactly, but it's just, it's the whole cycle that's perfect, and that whole, everything happens for a reason. What's more important than good or bad is just that everything is happening the way it was meant to be, and there is no right or wrong, there is no good or bad, because it is just simply things are just the way they are.
Yeah. I see.
He attached his writings to Zen. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's a question I've wrestled with, because that was one of my interests within philosophy in general, just ethics and what is good, how does one define good, and it's so confusing, and just maybe there isn't just one way of I don't think anybody's really pinpointed how people adequately pinpointed how people define the good, but how people define good and bad.
I've given up on the idea that there can be one universal truth definition for what's good, because we're all so different.
Yes.
Simply put, with that said, I feel like you can let go of this idea that you're a bad person, because not only is there the version of you that you see yourself, which can easily be changed. Not easily, I apologize. It can be altered or changed. That doesn't have to stay bad forever.
No.
Furthermore, again, depending on each individual you interact with the same with them. You might be good at times, you might be bad at times, but
yes.
So for you to say overall you're a bad person, seems hard to stick, or to last, or to endure, because in response to what defines good, I don't think there is one universal, period. No. That's my response to what you said earlier. It's not a cop-out, it just seems like the only, not problem, but the only barrier is the fact that everyone is entitled to be right, which I'm okay with. But for that reason, that we're all entitled to have our own truths, I can't see 100% of everybody agreeing on one singular definition of good.
Yes, everybody's entitled to their own beliefs about what is good and what is not. That said, I'm still heavily invested in the whole tested by experience component because I mean, you can't just believe that I believe that it's hard to come up with an example, but something that is like clearly something that an ethical statement that clearly is not true. That is.
It's okay. Can you just, if you wouldn't mind, help me understand what you mean by tested by experience? Give me an example in which you have an idea or an ideal or a thought that is good, and how would you literally test it? If you could help me run through that.
Like, I would say, for example, it is wrong to lie. Right? It is wrong to lie. In most cases, yeah, that is true, but I mean, for example, what if you're planning a surprise party for somebody, and that somebody got curious and just like, what are you doing? And then so you start learning from there that it's wrong to lie most of the time, but not all of the time. And it's like, and in certain cases, and then we get into the problem of like specifics and details and just and the problem I have in terms of I'm still trying to define what is good and what is bad, and because I feel like I believe that I would like to come to a definition so that I can have some sort of thing to follow, I suppose. I guess I'm not a fan of being mired in confusion and just this specific, that specific, and just...
When you said this lying bit, right? These, I'll call them exceptions to the rules, right?
Yes.
Instances where bending the rules is either okay or
yes,
the thing to do, right? I don't think that that's enough to shake the foundations of, the general truth and the truth that is at least true enough in at least 90% of situations, or the majority of situations. I don't think exceptions and these little X factors and these rare moments where, of course, I'll simply agree. Yes, it's bad to lie, and I feel like it's bad to lie 80-90% of the time.
Yes.
And I'll leave enough room or leeway for those little situations, but still, overall, I guess if it's such a small part that I wouldn't allow it to have to hold enough weight to shake the other 80-90% in which I feel firm in believing that it's not okay to lie. That's not enough to shake the idea altogether that telling the truth is better.
Yeah.
So, right.
Yeah.
In instances where, go ahead, please.
Oh
share
yes,
that.
the sociopath who believes it's okay to kill people, and that
Like, how are they wrong, you mean? If they
yes,
believe
how
it?
yeah.
my jerk statement is like, why would you magnify or focus so heavily on these small, like the 10%?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you focus that much on exceptions and like rare instances, or, you know, just that little, not statistic, but that little area? Why would you give it enough power to shape the foundation of the majority? Like, well, okay, sociopaths are, I mean, just not a rare case, but it's uncommon. You know, that a person would think that way, and it's not enough to where, you know, you would question everything because of that small detail. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to ask you.
It does bother me because if we have to create those exceptions, then that's no longer universal. Then it's just relative, and just I am not comfortable with the relative, and just this I would like to be, I guess it's my obsession for philosophy. I would like to be able to define, I would like to be able to define in a certain way how one comes to the good and what is good and what is not good.